Welcome back, everybody. James, I was just on autopilot. You want to introduce it?
I know, you're just on pod producing autopilot. Yeah,
I'm in the zone, man.
Chris, it's James Adair here again with another episode of the Equity Accelerator podcast, where I myself am a mortgage lender based out of Portland, Oregon, licensed anywhere in the state of Oregon, state of Washington, but we really don't talk about mortgages as much as we talk about tactics in the real estate business, tactics in any kind of entrepreneurial thought process, building equity. We had our friend Amanda on. We talked about running a successful real estate business and being a parent. So we're just talking about how to leverage relationships, build equity in relationships, build equity in your business and in your life. And that's what we're here to talk about today.
And speaking of, like, quick shout out to the success of the show. Like, somebody actually came through and said they'd listened to all the episodes. They wanted to work with you. Like, I think this is the power of podcasting. There's a great relationship that happens. It's why I say we.
Why I started. If you go back to the very first episode, why am I doing this? It's that I want to do something different. Of course, I'm obsessed with podcasts, and I listen to, bits and pieces of 3 or 4 of them every day, and some in my car and on my workouts or whatever. Yeah. And I love the medium. I've always loved radio. And this is just the next level. It's like doing my own radio show.
I know, right? Totally.
So fun.
Yeah.
So Michaela, if you're listening, shout out to Michaela. She called me and said, hey, I'm getting into the real estate business. I've listened to every episode and I'm excited to be in business with you. And I was my first reaction when she called, I was like, you're pulling my leg, because people have pinged me on social media and stuff. And I've gotten some good conversations started out of this, but no one's just really like pulled up a chair and said, let's go. Yeah. So super big win. And I'm excited to do that more frequently.
Yeah. It's fun because you keep bringing good conversation. I think that's what makes this medium work. And today's conversation is no different. I mean, I'm excited for this one because I think you've got a good plot twist here.
I mean, obviously, one of my big audiences here is real estate agents, realtors in the, Portland metro area. Mm-hmm. And every realtor knows a lender or two, and they have some that they, quote, prefer. Talk to my preferred lender, right?
Preferred lender.
Or it's like, hey, we have, preferred vendors that you can talk to. And I was just telling you earlier before we hit record on this about kind of my strategy is to try to retrain my business partners to use a little bit of a different script when bringing me and my team into the conversation.
Right.
Because I think it's a huge missed opportunity to say, talk to my preferred lender and here's their card, and put the onus on the client to take action. So that's the first mistake. And a lot of people are pretty good about saying, let me have my preferred lender call you. Yeah. So that's 10 times better than putting the pressure on the client. Right. Or do an email introduction where also, again, anything you can do to make it easier for the client to get into the right conversation ought to be done, right? Yeah. So an email introduction is always a really easy way to make that handoff. But I'm trying to take it to the next level and coach my partners to introduce me as part of their financing department or financing team. Mm-hmm. So imagine if you're in an open house and someone comes in and you don't really have much of a relationship with them. You start a conversation, maybe kind of get the feeling that this might be a good opportunity to bring on a new client, and you don't really know how to land the plane, get them to sign the sign-in sheet, or get them to meet you at another house to take the next level, take a meeting, right? Yeah. And so an easy way to bring me in is to say, hey, it sounds like you're really getting serious. I would love to have someone from my finance department follow up with you, right? Mm-hmm. They have a really unique process for helping you make a great financial decision, manage your equity now and in the future. And, what's a good number for me to have them reach out to you on? And even if you're not going to do anything, even if it's a neighbor and you're having a good conversation, hey, you know what? Let me have my finance department follow up with you. Even if you're not buying something, they have great strategies for helping you pay down your debt faster, helping you know exactly how much equity you have, take a quick snapshot and get into the active equity management conversation. Yeah. Right. And kind of framing my team as like, hey, this is a really unique and in-demand process that we've kind of pre-arranged for you. And all of my clients get preferred access to this.
Yeah.
right?
It's so important to, and that you've given it a container, right? Like active equity management.
Right, exactly.
Gives it brand equity, and that you are saying to your real estate partners, like, hey, like treat me like an extension of your team.
Exactly.
If I was the agent, I would be picking up the language you're using, the branding of it.
The language is super important. The language is super important. When you say, hey, let me have my preferred lender follow up with you, I think that cheapens the conversation, and it allows the client to bring their own baggage to it. Fair or not, it's true, right? And so they're like, oh yeah, this your lender, like I can just download an app and press a button and like, there's a kind of a used car salesman, stank on preferred vendors and borrowing money. And are you getting, are you sure you're getting the best deal? And how do I know how this works? And all of these questions that people have. But if my partners can frame us as, hey, I have the credential of a certified liability advisor. We are set up to be like financial advisors for people around their debts and their real estate. And it's really unique.
Dude, if I was an agent, I would be taking you to lunch and asking you to tell me or teach me the different things that you do and offer, so that I could say the same thing to my client. Because you've thought this through really well. Like, I love it when you talk about it, because it's really in depth. Like it's thought through. And
I've seen, I have other lenders, the mortgage world now with social media and conferences and stuff, you can follow other lenders in different markets and kind of pick up on things that other people are doing really rapidly now in ways that I never was able to do when I first started. Right. So there's actually kind of like a celebrity class of originators in the nation, and they are on stage at a lot of the things that I go to. And I've picked up a lot of these things from, YouTube and from these conferences that I go to. And one of my main mentors in the business is a guy named Todd Duncan, right? And he puts on a great event every year. He has a coaching company. I've done high trust coaching. So it's through all this that I pick up these little bits and pieces. It comes out smooth, but it's definitely stuff that I've heard other people say it, and it kind of hit me in a way that it said, man, that just makes sense. That just makes sense.
It's, you're a humble guy. I think the way you just said that sounds like, I picked a couple things up off of YouTube, but like it takes something to, not just collect ideas, but then assimilate them and then execute on them. And you've executed on them to where your realtor partners actually have resources and tools. It's not an idea. You're like, hey, realtor, like just use this script. Like there's substance behind. And I think a lot of times the problem with scripts are sometimes there's not a lot of substance behind a script, but but there's actually substance in when people are working with you, your active equity management stuff, right? There's a system there. There's stuff, there's substance.
Well, it's like, it's brand, it's, it's branding, this is active equity management is like giving it a name, the Borrow Smart analysis. It gives our system a name. We've all, my mentor and business partner here, Trevor, he's really been really smart about packaging up parts of the process and give it a name. And, and then it triggers people's imagination. It gives them a shorthand, and it also allows you to separate yourself from just sort of winging it, right? If you say, and this is another thing that I've kind of synthesized is through the story brand framework and the story brand book. If anyone's hearing that for the first time, go check out Story Brand, the book called Building a Story Brand. It's a really, really neat communication framework. Where they talk about, what do they talk about?
Well, it's all about marketing, like they have a 7-step process for how to clarify your message. I mean, I think that's kind of their tagline, clarify your message.
Clarify your message, right? So they thought, I was just trying to think about how I'm bringing the story brand into these little like discrete pieces. If I can give it a name, right, and allow it to be the plan, right? Because the story brand is like takes the natural narrative storytelling formula and applying it to a marketing interaction. And that most marketing positions itself as a hero of the story. Whereas if you flip the script and make your client the hero and position yourself as the guide, it's a much more visceral experience, and people gravitate towards finding a guide on their own journey. So if you can create, position yourself as a realtor, not like hire me, I'm the best. We get the,
right.
we always get the most
Right.
return on listing and we sell them faster. If you say, hey, we have a unique system for helping you accomplish this, and it's called active equity management.
Right.
That triggers a light bulb. Everyone's heard the same thing, but if you show up as a guide with like
right,
a turnkey plan to hand off, it's totally super powerful.
Everybody's heard, I think everybody's heard, oh, I'm going to, like, you should talk to my preferred vendor. Like that's
right.
the same. And active equity management or any of the other language or branding you have around your stuff is a pattern interrupt for people.
And just hyping it up a little bit and saying, oh my God, and everyone's like, oh, I've already talked to blah, 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 US Bank, or I've talked to my credit union, or I already have a guy. It's like, look, this is just part of our process. I really want you to go through this conversation, and then you can do whatever you want. But this is really important to us that you go through our
educational
process.
I mean, beyond the pre-qualification and the other stuff that the other places would have done that you'll also do, there's also a conversation that happened. We've talked about this in previous episodes, but there's a conversation you're having with them that's very intelligent and different than most mortgage people are having, because you're asking, because you see a mortgage as a financial tool, not a transaction.
But if you're a realtor and you are in this interaction in a negotiation with every interaction is a kind of negotiation.
Sure. Yeah.
And so this is, someone you've been referred to, or someone who shows up at an open house and you think you can sign them up as a client. As soon as you say, oh, I'd like you to talk to my preferred vendor. And then they say, oh, we already have so-and-so.
Right.
Like who's controlling the process? The buyer and you say, no, we have a process. Like you have to try to put them on your process. And that's something I learned a long time ago from, again, one of these like coaching conversations. Someone said, if you're not putting your client or prospect into your process, they're putting you into their process.
Yep.
And once you're in their process, you've lost control of the conversation. And then, they set the parameters, they set the framework. And so it's really subtle, but I think if you insist on putting them on your process, you're going to take the high ground in that interaction.
Right. It's one of the years and years of being in the industry, running a real estate company. It was one of the challenges a lot of agents had, was being really frustrated by feeling like the client was driving the process.
They are.
Right.
And they have access to so much information now that they expect to drive the process.
But and absent of you having a process, that's what's going to happen. But if you have a process,
precisely,
if you have a process, then you actually have something to invite them to, and it's probably better than their own process, because their process is a default process. They don't even know what the process is. They're just
They don't know what's fresh information, what's relevant information, what was true 5 years ago or whatever. They just, it's just a big blob of info.
Right. And I think all of this points to brand equity, and a way to accelerate your brand equity, right, is have a process, brand the process, call it something, pattern interrupt, and put them on your process. Yeah. And I love that. And full circle, I love that you make that easy for agents, right? Like I think agents are looking for points of differentiation, right? And this is you've given them a point of differentiation without them having to even create it.
I know. And exactly. And they need to believe, right? They don't believe it. Right. Well, you're just another lender, right? And it doesn't matter if but they have an opportunity to change their thinking and change their conversation.
Right.
And I think it could really improve conversion and improve client experience. 100%.
You said believe, and I flashed back to Braveheart, where Robert the Bruce was like, I want to believe as he does. We just got to believe, people. We got to believe.
I love Braveheart. Oh, by the way, this is before, I know we're trying to wrap up here, but I'll take it offline. There's a movie, there's like a sequel to Braveheart that came out on Netflix called Outlaw King. And it's really good.
No, is it real or is it a spoof?
No, it's real.
Oh,
it's a narrative film, but it's on Netflix. And anyway, I stumbled into it one night and was just like, man, this is awesome.
That's extra credit. That's TV equity right there. That's like
so if
show equity.
Come this far with us, check out Outlaw King. Let me know what you think.
I think that could be a good part of the show, James, is like these little back door or these backstage conversations where like you're getting show tips and
yeah, exactly. Normally you got to like download and put in the special QR code to get these kind of conversations, backstage conversations, but we're letting you in on it this time.
Well, if people want to connect with you, they want to actually learn. They actually want to take you to lunch, James, and hear about your whole process.
You know, I'm cheap. You can just buy me a cup of black coffee. That's my favorite drink in the whole world. And we can connect. If you're in the Portland area, would love to talk with you. Find me on my website, pdxhomeloan.com. James at pdxhomeloan.com. Yeah, let's talk.
So easy. I love it. Good stuff, James. I look forward to our next episode. Until then, take care.
Thanks, Chris. Later.